You, Brian, and thank you guys for having me on this call today. I know Brian was telling me that you don't get that many females on here, so this sounds like a treat for you guys this morning. And I want to little like before I get into really what I want to talk about, I want to touch on what Brian was talking about. And one of the biggest things is he said that a lot of people, you've got someone on the team that's flat. And to me, what I believe is that when people are flat, it's because they don't have any belief. They're missing one of the key pieces that comes down to sales, which is not just belief, but also heart. And some of you guys can use your words, but if you're missing the heart behind it, it's just words. There's a saying, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard it. People will remember what you said, they'll remember how you made them feel. And even if you're the worst speaker in the room and you have the smallest vocabulary because maybe you didn't get to go to college or you didn't get to do all these things, it still comes down to the way that you make people feel, especially when it comes down to making a decision. And every single one of you guys in here today, you guys are all public speakers. And what that means is that you talk to people for a living. And it would definitely be in you guys' best interest to be the best speaker in the room because you're using your language, your tonality, your words to get somebody to make a decision and to move forward. And whenever I was talking to Brian, I said, do you want me to bring sales training to the table? Do you want me to bring, so what do you want me to bring? And he said, you just hit it and you hit it hard. And I said, hell yeah. So I like to put Brian on the spot. That's why I said, don't give me an introduction. I'll rock and roll with this thing. So, but what I want to start with is my background. And a lot of you guys have your individual story. Every single one of you comes from something, and maybe your story isn't as bad as the next, but it's your story. It's what you live through. It's what has created you to be the person that you are today. And every single decision that you've made up until this point is a direct reflection of the life that you guys have right now. So some of you guys in here, you don't like the life that you have. You're not producing the numbers you want to produce. You don't have the relationship with your wife that you want to have. You don't have the relationship with your kids that you want to have. It's because of the decisions that you're making. And I'm here to tell you guys today that this is the day that you're going to be able to self-reflect. And there's two kinds of people that are going to be inside of this room today. There's the people that are truly driven to make a change inside of their life. And then there's the people that are motivated. The motivated people look like this. It's when we're on this call and you guys get all gung ho and you get excited and I say something that triggers you, you're like, hell yes, I'm going to kill it today. I got all the energy in the world. I'm going to go home and give my wife all the special attention that she deserves. I'm going to spend an extra hour playing with my kids. I'm going to stay up tonight and I'm going to study. Well, then you go through your entire day today. And then tonight comes around and you walk into the door and you got your ass kicked and you didn't make a single sale today and you didn't help a single person. And then you no longer give your wife what you said you were going to do. You don't spend the extra time with your kids. Instead, you sit down, you crack open a beer, you eat some fried chicken, and you watch your reruns of whatever bullshit ass TV show you're watching. That's what you end up spending your evening doing. That's a motivated person. That's somebody who's never going to get anywhere in life. And man, if I don't love those people because they're the easiest people to outrun. They're the easiest people to beat. Now, there's the other side of you guys who are going to hear something on this call, or you've already heard something on some of these calls previously, and you fight every damn day to make something happen. A lot of you guys are not scared of failure. You're scared of what people will think of you if you fail. But if you guys aren't doing shit in life right now and you're not really pushing the needle inside of the company, no one even knows who you are. So why does it matter? People are talking about the people who are actually doing something in life. That's why people like Andy Elliott get so much hate. That's why people like myself who speak out, I get told that I'm a masculine female, all this bullshit that people tell me. Listen, at the end of the day, if I wasn't doing anything, people wouldn't have anything to talk about. I love that people have something to talk about because you know what that means? That means I'm doing shit. That means I'm pushing the needle. That means I'm getting out there and I'm getting uncomfortable and I'm changing and I'm growing and I am pushing buttons on people that they don't want pushed. So what I want to do is give you guys a little bit about where I came from and why it's so important to visit. Now, I'm not saying that you should live in the past. Please do not live there because the past is in the past for a reason. But one good thing about your past is that there are so many lessons in your past that you can pull from to utilize for your every single day. I'm 27 years old, and I know some of you guys are like, this girl's 27. She don't know what she's talking about. Listen to me. What I have learned is that I don't need to be 57 to be successful. I can do that shit today. I don't need to wait 20 and 30 years to learn something to be able to implement it to be successful. What I can learn is from people who have already gone where I want to go. If somebody in business has done it for 30 years, why would I try to run the same path and run the same play of trial and error and failure? Trial and error and failure. Why don't I take the 30 years of experience that they have? There's some of you guys in here are some old dogs. You guys have been in this business for a long time and you've learned a lot, but some of you aren't even implementing the things that you've learned. But why would I spend 30 years doing what someone's already done? Why don't I take the last 30 years that they have lived, the last 30 years that they've grown their business, and why don't I just take all the good things that they've done and I'll just execute on that? You can learn something from every single person that you're around, whether or not they have the bigger bank account than you or they have a smaller bank account. The bank account doesn't match the kind of things that you can learn from somebody. One thing that I like that Brian said is he said, Maria told me something to do inside of my business and I implemented it and that shit worked. Get creative with the way that you can do business. Get creative and understand that whether somebody's doing something in a business or not, you have something to offer every single freaking time. And if someone treats you like you don't have anything to offer, they're not your people anyways. So I grew up in a place called Daytona Beach, Florida. And if you guys know what Daytona Beach, Florida is like, there's a crackhead on every single corner, and one of them was probably my dad. So I grew up there in a trailer park, and I have four other brothers and sisters, and we all grew up just not good, right? A lot of us probably grew up poor. We probably went without a lot of the things that we really wanted, definitely without the things that we needed. But one thing that I did have was I had my mom. And my mom struggled with addiction as well. And one thing that she did do though was at least she would keep it in her bedroom to where at the end of the day, we still had a roof over our head. We still had food on the table. And we had clothes on our back. Growing up that way makes you into a very hard person, a hard-hearted person. When I turned 13, I went from Florida and we moved to North Carolina. My mom got her shit together. We moved to North Carolina because my mom needed a clean slate. She needed to start somewhere new. I think we all really needed that. And some of you guys may need that in life right now, where you like, I need to freaking swipe the slate on some bullshit that I need to get rid of in my life. And I need to be able to start making some decisions that are going to be better for me. So she makes this decision and we go and we move to North Carolina. I have some family in North Carolina and some things didn't get better. By the time that I was 16 years old, I met my husband. We've been together for 11 years this year. I know it's crazy. Can't even imagine. I met my husband when I was 16 years old. The person that I was at 16 years old was a cold, hateful person. I did not care about people. I did not have a glass half full mentality. My glass was fucking empty, and every single person was actually drinking from my glass. That was the way that I viewed life because that's the way that I grew up. I didn't have any kind of relationship with God, and I'm not pushing religion on any of you guys. I know not everyone here is on that same path, but I had no relationship. I had no relationship with my parents. I'm 16 years old. I'm just out in the world living life like what am I here to do? And I was so lost and I was so confused and I didn't have any kind of direction on where I was going to go and I didn't have anybody to teach me where to go. I had no leaders, I had no mentors, I had nobody that I looked up to, and I struggled with that for a long time. But what I did know was that there's two kinds of people when it comes to families that come from addiction. You're either going to become the addict or you're going to become the opposite of the addict. And I promised myself that I would never walk down that path. I had fight after fight after fight with my mother. And I said, I will never be like you, ever. And she looked at me one day and finally, as we're arguing, and she said, I really hope that you don't. I hope you become the complete opposite of what I am because I have failed every single time. A lot of people look at my family and they don't understand what my family has been through. They don't understand that my family, generation after generation after generation, has grown up poor, with nothing, with bad habits, weight issues, heart issues, diabetes, dementia, all of it. We've had every freaking disease in the book. And all of it came down to the fact that we never took care of ourselves. We never tried to get out of our little bubble that we were in. We never tried to break what everybody calls that generational curse. Like we're all cursed. You're not cursed. You've just made a decision to follow in line with the decisions that your parents made and your grandparents made and your great grandparents made. Now, if you make the same decision, the definition of chaos is making the same decision over and over again and expecting a different result. So I knew if I made some of those same decisions that my mom made, that I would end up just like her. And that was not what I was going to do. And one thing that I knew was that nobody in my family was educated. So I thought, this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and get an education. I worked 3 jobs through college, lived off campus, and do not have a penny of college debt because I knew that if I was going to drown in debt after college, there was no way I was ever going to get out. I was going to fall just like the rest of the world that I saw falling around me. So as I worked through college, I got a degree and I have a bachelor's in sustainable agriculture and biology of all things. My husband and I, we went to college together. He has a background in construction, which is where we're going to get into the home services side and how we actually really started getting into that. So after we graduated, Bryson and I lived in a shithole. We moved back to Hickory, North Carolina. We had no air conditioning. We literally just lived in a hot box because we couldn't afford a house that was any better. Because one thing that they didn't tell you is that when you graduate college, you're actually not going to make any money. They told you you were, but they actually were kidding. You're not going to make any money. But what I did have was that I had an experience. I had hard work beneath me. And I was fighting like hell to make sure that I didn't end up just like my parents. And with that education, I was able to get my first sales job. And I actually left that sales job. I used to sell appliances and I sold $1.2 million in appliances in 10 months. And for some of you guys who don't know about the kind of conversion there, that's killing it. But you don't make any money. You actually get paid $9 an hour to work your ass off. So as you can tell, I still wasn't making any money. I lasted less than a year in that position. And I decided, hey, sales isn't it. I'm an awful salesperson. I'm great at talking to old people, but I mean, it's only going to get me $9 an hour. There's no way there's a point in sticking here. So we went and got cookie cutter jobs and we got jobs that paid us X amount of dollars an hour. And we worked those jobs for about 3 years. And I worked from sun to sundown, ended up getting my dream job, which is working in a veterinary hospital. So I got to fix cats and dogs for a living, and it was wonderful while it lasted. But you make about $15 an hour doing that, and that will only get you so far. And when you do that for 3 years, you realize that you are worth so much more. And the moment that I realized it, my husband worked in the home services space and he did construction management, did restoration. I am very in tune with the way that things operate. What I was really good at was sitting down on the back end and helping my husband estimate all these jobs and get people in the right place. He was a project manager for quite some time. So we were in the restoration worked for a company called Spangler on the East Coast. And one thing that my husband had a really bad habit of was drinking and smoking a shit ton of pot. And some of you guys probably do that on the regular, but what ended up happening was he smoked in a company truck and he got fired from his wonderful job that after all those years in college paid him a whopping $60,000 a year. And he came home one day and he said, I got fired and I just was at a loss for words. We had at this point owned a house and our cars and we weren't making any money. And I'm thinking, how in the hell on my wonderful, 15 or 12, whatever that was making, $15 an hour, something like that. How am I going to make our mortgage on $15 an hour? That's when we reintroduced ourselves back into sales. And he starts working for a company and they do foundation repair, basement remediation, encapsulation, mold remediation, things like that. And so he starts working for this company and he's first couple of months not making a dollar, doesn't know how to talk to anybody to save his life. And hell, I didn't either. I was scared. I didn't go back to sales because I was like, I'm not going to waver on the fact that like I get paid based on skill and I have no freaking skill. So I was like, there's no way I'm not banking on that. So I keep my $15 an hour job. He goes and starts making sales and he starts getting a coach. And we've never hired a coach in our life. We just hit it hard. And he gets a coach and he starts learning how to sell. He starts learning how to speak and he starts closing more jobs. He brings a paycheck home for $28,000 in 1 month. Out of the blue, he's just like, I think I figured it out. And he just believed. The difference wasn't just the words that were coming out of his mouth. The difference was the belief. He realized the kind of opportunity that he was in. And he realized that if he left that opportunity, we would be back into our same average ass going through the rat race. He brings home this check for $28,000. And I'm like, I work my ass off for a whole year for 28,000 bucks, a whole year. I have to work freaking every single Saturday. I got to go feed animals on Sunday. I'm like, how am I working an entire year and you just brought a paycheck home for 28 grand for 1 month in sales? I was like, I'm sold. I'm putting my notice in. I put my notice in, I quit my job, and I start working for the company that he's working for. I was like, hey, if you can do it and we can double up on it and we can figure this thing out and we can team it, we're going to kill it. So I get into this company, and guess what happens? I get my ass kicked. I am so bad at this, and I have no idea how to talk to people. And I had to learn. And my position wasn't the same as his. His position was going underneath houses, and he would quote jobs. He talked to a homeowner, and he would get the homeowner to make a decision on whether or not they wanted to move forward. What I would have to do was more on the business development side. And what I would have to do is go out to other business owners, and I'm looking for referral partners. So I had to go out and shake hands with other business owners when I had no idea what I was doing to try to build relationships to be able to sell them on why they need to refer us for business. That next year, we made $200,000 between the two of us. More money than we'd ever made, more money than our entire family had ever made. My mom barely makes 30 grand now, and she still is doing the same job. So we made 200K. We end up buying this $500,000 house in North Carolina. We've got all of our cars, our dogs. We don't have kids or anything. We're just living life. And what ends up happening when you make money and you never came from anything is you tend to spend every single dollar you have, all of it, plus all the dollars you don't have. You actually dig yourself into a hole quite quickly. And so we dug ourselves into a hole, and we ended up going into this vicious cycle. We were in sales, but what we ended up doing was Bryson and I didn't really get to be kids. And so what we decided was, instead of spending our time with actually growing our life, we're going to spend our time partying. And that's where all the drinking and the cocaine and throwing the parties and having all the people over, all the shit started happening. Our house was in a historical district, and all of our neighbors hated us because we were like the frat house. You walk into our front living room, we had a pool table, darts, we had custom bars that we had built inside the house. We had it all figured out inside. It was just what it was. That's just the life that we had created. And so one day we wake up, and I remember waking up from one of these parties, and this was the moment that I decided that we needed to change. And it was a hard decision to make, and it was tough for both of us, but it was the best thing that we could have possibly done. And this was probably 4 years ago now. And we had thrown a party, and I remember walking through my house drunk, and it's kind of hard to explain, but it's all super fuzzy. And maybe some of you guys have kind of experienced something like this, but it was almost like I was having an out of body experience of my life. I walk into my bathroom, there's people in there I don't know. I realized walking around, and I have a house full of people that I have no idea who they are. I don't know their names. I don't know their faces. I walk into my dining room, on my brand new dining room table. People are snorting lines of Coke. I walk outside, my dog's covered in vomit. Someone vomited on him from over the balcony. And I just realized in that moment, I asked myself, I was like, what in the hell are we doing? What are we doing? There's no way this is it. I wake up the next morning, I'm hungover, my house is trashed, there's blood across the floor. Apparently, my dog bit somebody at some point in the middle of the night. I'm cleaning up and scrubbing blood off the floor. I've got a guy sleeping out front of my house, and there's trash everywhere. And I decided whenever I woke up that morning that we weren't going to do this any longer. We got our shit together, we cleaned up our house. And what I realized was that nobody wanted to come around anymore. Nobody wanted to hang out with us. Nobody wanted to come and just spend time because we weren't partying anymore. We weren't drinking. We weren't doing drugs. And I realized very quickly how small our circle was about to get. But it was what we wanted to do. I realized how empty that life was. No one going through the fuzzy memories, not even remembering sometimes how you drove and got home. That's some scary shit to go through. And what I also realized was I started making decisions to be just like my mom. And I was heading down that same exact path. And I fucking promised myself that I would not make that decision to walk down that path. And so we cleaned everything up, and we decided, we were like, it's time to change. We start hitting the gym every day. We start cutting the drinking out. We're no longer doing drugs. We're eating healthy. This goes on for about a year, and of just hitting it hard, hitting it hard, hitting it hard. And we decided, we were like, we're only in our 20s, and we got the house. And we got the dogs, we've got the savings. We didn't have much in savings because we spent a shit ton of money. But we've got a little bit of savings. We had a 401k. We're doing all these things. And we just decided, we were like, there's no way this is it. Is this what people rant about? The house and the car and the dogs? Like, what do? We just have kids and then do we die in this place? Is this all that we do? And I started thinking, and there's something in my family, and my family suffers from Alzheimer's. My grandparents have had it. My mom has started showing signs of it. And one thing that I'm very fearful of is that one day I will have Alzheimer's and I won't be able to remember. But whenever I ask people, what have I done and where am I? What are they going to say? What are they going to tell me? Are they going to tell me that I just screwed my life up and that I live in a shithole? Or are they going to tell me that I helped people? Are they going to tell me that I made an impact? Are they going to tell me that I wasn't like my mom? Or are they going to tell me I was exactly like my mom and I ended up exactly where I was meant to be from the beginning? And so, with that said, we had $10,000 in savings at this point, which is not a lot of money. And we decided we were like, we need something else. And we find this guy named Brad. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with this guy named Brad Lee, but he has a podcast and it's called Dropping Bombs. And as our journey of this year of like fitness and health and getting our life together, we end up start listening to all these podcasts and we find this guy Brad. And Brad puts a podcast down. He says, "Hey, I have an event coming up. It's going to cost you like $5,000 for these CEO tickets or whatever, some high level ticket." And my husband's like, "Hey, we should just go general admission. They're $300." And I was like, "Okay, sure." And he gets off the phone and I call and the guy doesn't even have to sell me. I said, "I don't care how much it is. I'll put it on a credit card. How much is it? I need the best tickets that you have. I want the Brad Lee tickets. I want to meet the guy and I want to talk to him. And I'm going to make sure that I can get what he has because he's gone where I want to go." So I dropped $10,000 with no way of being able to pay for a plane ticket. So I had to put that on a credit card and we fly out to Las Vegas and we meet this guy, Brad. Well, there was another speaker who was in sales because I wanted to learn how to be a better salesperson. His name we won't mention, but it rhymes with Laramie Minor. And so what we ended up doing was they subbed out and they had Andy Elliott, this bald psychopath, was a car sales guy, and he gets on stage and he starts talking. With the tickets that we bought, we got to spend a couple days with them. The value in this is that you have to start getting into deeper waters with bigger fish if you're really going to learn. If you want to learn how to get somewhere, you have to learn from people that have already done it. I'm telling you guys, it doesn't have to take 30 years. It takes a decision, it takes finding the right person, and it takes diving in and learning every single thing that they know. And I met this guy, Andy, and my husband and I decided, we were like, we don't care how much it costs. We need you to coach us because you in this moment made us realize everywhere that we're falling short in life and we're so sick and tired of it and we're too young and there's no way that we're going to die with doing what we're doing right now. No freaking way. And he says, "Okay, it's going to cost you 10 grand." I was like, done. I call the bank, I get a loan for $10,000 and I wire him over 10 grand and he starts coaching us. 28 days later, I get a FaceTime. My husband gets a FaceTime. And Andy FaceTimes my husband and says, "Hey, you don't like what you're doing." And we said, "It's all right. It's paying the bills. It's doing what we want it to do." And he said, "No, no, 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 no." He said, "I've never done this. I've known you for less than a month. I don't know why." He said, "But you should pack everything up and move to Arizona and come work for me." Now, mind you, at the time, Andy Elliott was a car sales trainer. He had maybe 20,000 followers on Instagram, and we had no freaking idea who this guy was other than he was a really good speaker. So immediately, I'm not even on the FaceTime. I'm just standing off the side, and I was like, "Done. We don't even need to ask questions. Done." We didn't know how much money we were going to make. We didn't even know what we were going to be doing. He just said, "Come work for my company." Done. So we pack all of our stuff. 2 weeks later, we're driving out to Scottsdale, Arizona, and this is now where we live and where we've been for a couple of years now. And along that journey, there's a couple of things to keep in mind that we had no money. So paying rent was a little bit of a difficult task. We couldn't really buy groceries, and also our house went into foreclosure at the same time. So as we decided to make this decision and swipe our life clean, everything else as we were walking away from it was falling apart into a million pieces. And I was not going to look back. I wasn't going to grab all the things that were lost. We literally lost everything, but we did have each other. And we had somebody that we had hope. We had somebody that believed in us. We had someone that also was telling us what we were telling ourselves the whole time, was which that we were built for something more. And so when we made that decision, we came out here and once again, we start at ground zero and we get our ass kicked. For 6 months, we get our ass kicked and we have no idea. This is totally different than what we had ever done before. So for 6 months, we didn't make any money. I had to borrow money from our VP at the time. And I was like, I need a loan. I can't pay rent. I'm going to be living in the parking lot before long if you don't help us out, please. So he helps us out. And then what I realized was that it wasn't the words. This still goes back to what Brian said in the beginning of the call. He said, it's 90% belief. It wasn't about the words that we were saying. Could we learn new language? Yes. Could we become more fluid speakers? Yes. Could we cut out the ums? Yes. But at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. What mattered was how we were making people feel. And all we were doing is hitting them with our words. We were trying to memorize the word tracks and we weren't just giving people the heart, which is exactly what they needed. You guys think that just because you're in a home services business that people don't want heart? People will spend more money with someone that gives them an A-class experience. People every day are spending thousands and thousands of dollars to go to Disney. And you know what Disney gives you? An experience and a memory. It doesn't give you anything. You don't get to take home the money that you spent there. Maybe you get a Mickey Mouse bobblehead, but at the end of the day, you get nothing more than experience. And so what we need to do is that we need to learn how to re-believe. I share my story with you guys because I look back at that story and I put my heart into every single thing that I do day in and day out. If I can't put my heart into it, people will know. And I went from being that cold person. I went from being hateful. I was the half glass empty kind of person. That's not me now. And I can change. And I know that I've hurt a lot of people in the past. And some of you guys have hurt a lot of people. You've made a lot of mistakes. You've burned a lot of bridges. You've burned a lot of relationships with people that you actually really care about. But that's not who you are now. I'm not an addict. I'm not just like my mom. I'm not in a trailer park. I'm none of these things any longer. But if I can't have belief in myself, how is anyone else going to believe in me? How are your clients going to believe that you're telling them the truth if you don't believe in it? The guy out there with the monotone voice, dude, you don't have a monotone voice. You lack belief. If you got fired up, pissed off about something, I promise you'll have some tonality in your voice. There's no way you go into a conversation that you feel passionate about and that you have heart behind that you're monotone in. You're hiding. You are hiding behind that excuse of that you have a monotone voice. You are hiding behind the fact that you think that you can't sell or you can't speak or you can't talk to people. You sell yourself every day on why you need to get up and go into work. Learn how to sell people on believing in you, but it's going to start with that 90% belief. It's going to start with remembering that it's not about the sell. It's not about the product knowledge. Guys, the client thinks you're speaking Spanish. They don't even understand what you're saying half the time. They have no idea how to fix anything in their house. What they need is to have somebody that they can believe in that is going to do the job the right way, is going to take care of their number one prized possession, which is their home. That is most people's biggest investment in life is their home. And they want to trust that there's someone that is going to treat it just like their home, someone they can have around their family, someone that they know is going to do a quality job. I came on here today to let you guys know to not forget to put heart back into every single thing that you guys do. And I know it sounds mushy. I know it sounds like some snowflake stuff. It sounds soft. A lot of you guys have this hard exterior that you're not soft, but then you go home at night and you fucking cry in your car because you're not making it. Let's bring the wall down. Let's do what we know needs to be done. And let's make sure that we're doing everything that we can to get to that next level. So that's what I have for you guys today. I just wanted to share with you guys a couple things that I've been through. I know we've got a couple of minutes here. I don't know if Brian's planning on coming back on or not. But if I do want to make sure that if we have the opportunity, maybe one of you guys can let me know. If we have questions or anything, I would be honored to be able to answer anything that you guys have.
Right. How do you keep from falling back into your comfortable old ways like your mother or something like
Mhm.
you're talking about. Yourself from going there
Yeah.
because it is uncomfortable.
Absolutely. Not falling back has to do with awareness and how aware you are about your situation. The people that can self-correct will forever be wealthy. I learned that early on. I keep a sticky note on my desk that says, get up faster. And the faster that I can get up, the less likely I am to go backwards. Because what happens is you catch momentum and you start winning, but somewhere in there, you start to lose a little bit or you start to get a little bit comfortable because you're winning and you're like, oh, I can let off the gas a little bit. I can slow down a little bit. And then you realize before long, you're back down to the bottom of that valley where you started. And now you don't know how to get the momentum back up. Keeping yourself aware of where you're at is so important. And if you're not self-aware, you'll never be able to self-correct. And a lot of you guys, unfortunately, you're not surrounded with maybe people like Brian who will tell you the truth. You're not surrounded with people like me who will shoot you right in the gut and tell you what the problem is. You're not surrounded by Andy who will always be extremely direct with you. And so some of you guys are going to have to learn the skill of being direct with yourself. And remembering too that when you fall back into those old ways, ask yourself, do you really want it that bad? Because if you don't want it that bad, then you're going to stay right there. I have this constant piece in the back of my mind that says if I slow down and I go back, someone is going to beat me and take my place. The Andy said I've heard this, and it's not just Andy, but I've heard this a lot where it says the winners will be where the quitters quit. That's where the winners will start. That is so true for a lot of you guys that if you slow down at all, someone is going to beat you. And I am competitive as hell. I don't want anybody to beat me. And so I keep that little piece that I know if I slack off, I know if I go into a Netflix watching series and I'm not reading a book, I am going to fall backwards. But one thing I'll also challenge you guys is to make sure a lot of you guys have significant others at home. Maybe some of you guys don't, but there's power in your significant other holding your ass accountable. And a lot of you guys don't share with your wives or your husbands. I don't know which way you swing, whatever. A lot of you guys aren't sharing with your significant others exactly what you're struggling with, and you're not allowing them to hold you accountable. You think your wives are bitching at you and complaining at you and that they're holding you back when really at the end of the day you told them about all the bad things that were happening in your company. You told them about how you weren't making money, when at the end of the day it's not the company's fault, it's your fault. And then when your wife wants to hold you accountable, back in the day you used to say, man, I love it because she pushes me and she pushes me to be better. But now you think she's nagging at you. Don't forget that I also, on the other side, I have a husband. I sat down and I was like, man, it'd be so nice to watch a movie. And you want to know what he said to me? Is that a good use of your time? And I was like, actually, you're right. It's not. Here we go with the book reading. And you have to have someone else in your life that holds you accountable. Some of you guys don't even let your significant others hold you accountable. Sit down with them and have someone that's going to push you. So when you start complaining, they can shove their foot up your ass because you have no one else around you to do that except the person that's at home.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I came from a broken home too, and it's awesome to hear that you got sober. I have almost 7 years sober too. My mom was a drug addict, and it's awesome to hear that you don't use that as an excuse, but more of a motivation to kind of complement your life and use that as a catalyst to kind of push yourself in many different ways in your life, right? So congratulations on that. But did you seek any outside sources for your sobriety, or was it kind of just like you know, moment, just I'm done now, or did you kind of go to meetings, or what did you use to kind of get to your sobriety?
I didn't use meetings because oddly enough, at, you know, 8, 9, 10 years old, I spent a lot of time in NA. I had
Right.
parents that, they were going through their cycles. And one thing that I learned was that I I'm not saying meetings don't work, but they sure as shit didn't work for my parents. So I decided when I was done and I was sick and tired, it was more of just a decision for me. And what I used was just, I surrounded myself with higher level things. And what I mean by that is that when I was ready to be done, I was done, but I needed to be able to be surrounded by people who were kicking ass to remind me why I was doing what I was doing. And so I did a lot of things like going to the gym. I mean, dude, I still fight with myself on a daily basis. I'm always having an internal battle. That internal dialect is dog shit. And I'm working on that every single day. The person I'm looking at in the mirror, I am constantly criticizing. I am constantly pushing to get better. But I watched my parents struggle for so long, and I was like, man, these meetings must not work because they can't seem to stay clean worth the shit. So I just decided that when that moment that I was so powerful to me that I did not end up like my mom, that it was an easier decision, easier said than done. Now, some people do. We've got Tommy here, Tommy Prokopovich. He used crystal meth for a long time, and he still goes to meetings. But we've got another girl. Her name's Valentina, and she just same thing, made a decision. She was she was on pills for a long time. I don't know what kind, but she just made a decision, and she's never had meetings or anything. So I would say your sobriety comes down to it really is going to come down to what works for you, and you have to make that decision. But you are a direct reflection of the things and the people that you surround yourself with. And so if you surround yourself with good things, you surround yourself with people that are successful, you surround yourself with the right coaches, the right podcasts, and it even comes down to music, dude. Sounds crazy enough. I don't even listen to rap music anymore. I'm over here listening to like some Christian rock, like, because you are, again, a reflection of the shit that you surround yourself with. And so if you're surrounding yourself with trash, what are you going to become? Trash. And so I would push you to just do what's going to be best for you. It's individual basis.
Yeah, show me your 5 closest friends and I'll show you who you are, right?
Yes, exactly. And I mean, that is the truth. It sounds so cookie cutter, but it's the absolute truth.
Thank you.
Of course. All right, take it away, Brian.
Anybody else? Questions for Maria? James Estes, anybody?
I got a question.
All right.
Yeah, you're.
All right. How do you switch from being motivated to being driven? How do you make that?
Yeah, so this is it's basically like creating a new habit. And this still comes down to being self-aware, but it also comes down to digging back into why are you doing what you're doing? And I have such a drive because of where I came from. This guy, I don't know his name. This guy that said he has 7 years sober, if his background is so rough, he's got something to freaking fight for. He's got heart behind what he's doing. And he's a badass for having 7 years clean. Some people will dismiss that. That is so freaking hard for people to do. But because he came from such adversity, he will win. As long as he keeps pushing and he believes in himself, he will win. But this is a new habit that you have to build because I wasn't always driven like this. I was the same motivated person. It was like, I went to the gym for 2 or 3 days. Oh, my body hurts. I'll take a week and a half off. Or, I'll train for 1 day for 20 minutes. And I'm telling myself in the moment, like, I'm going to train every day, every single day. I'm going to train. I had to build the habit. In the moments that I didn't want to do the things, there's this little piece of your brain, can't tell you what it's called, but there's a little piece of this brain that grows when you do shit that you don't want to do. And what ends up happening is that motivation that you have, if you do the things that you don't want to do on the days that you're not motivated, that piece of your brain grows to the point that now you're all of a sudden driven. It's just what you do. You just do the hard stuff every day. You have to learn to be, again, this just comes down to self-awareness. Know where you're at. And this is an internal conversation. You're not going to be able to have this conversation with anybody else. If I'm sitting down and I open my eyes in bed and I think to myself, dang, dude, I don't really want to get up. It's 4:15. I could sleep until, I could probably sleep until 7 and no one would really know. But you know who's going to know? Me. I'm going to know. I'm going to know that I fell short. And what about the other guy that got up at 4:15 when I was supposed to get up? That person's going to beat me for that day. And if you can start building that habit and that routine of having this conversation and being like, what the hell am I saying? And I literally tell myself this. I ask myself, what am I even saying right now? This is so stupid. This is loser talk. This is what losers say to themselves. There's no freaking way. And so I have to build this other internal dialogue that's happening when you're having this battle inside. You have to build that voice to be stronger. Right now, it's a weak voice. That lazy, that mediocre voice, it kicks that one's ass every single time. Every single time that you sleep in, every single time you don't say what you're going to say, do what you say you're going to do. That little mediocre, average ass voice will win until you start growing this other piece that says, dude, we're not doing this anymore. We're no longer rationalizing. We're no longer making excuses. If we say we're going to do some shit, we're going to do it. You got to grow that voice.
Question for me, Maria, how does anybody get a hold of you if they want more, if they want some training, if they want to just reach out, have a conversation?
Absolutely. I've got two things, social media. It's official Maria Kirby, Maria, and Kirby as in boy, Y, like a vacuum cleaner. Most people call me Kirby. I know Brian calls me Maria, but most people do call me Kirby like a vacuum cleaner. And when I answer the phone, I introduce myself that way. But if you guys do want to reach out and you want to call me, text me. It's 828-291-3551. Again, it's 828-291-3551. You guys can call me, text me, FaceTime me, whatever you guys need. I'm here to help you guys out.
Also, you're in the Waste No Day Facebook group, right?
Yeah, I am. I'm in there.
Yeah, find her in there too. If
Awesome.
you're not in there, what the hell are you doing with your life? I don't even know. Wasting your time.
And thank you
Cool.
again, Brian, for having me on here. I appreciate you. This has been awesome. I hope I was
Please.
able to at least provide a little bit of value to you guys today. Even if I only impacted one of you guys, that's all that it matters for me today. So you guys get out there and kick some ass.